بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Wednesday, the 25th of January 2023, and in our series Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 388. We are discussing the words of Al-Baqarah, which is the second chapter, verse 107, and this is the second broadcast in which we are discussing the words of this verse of the Holy Quran. These broadcasts are brought to you by LASER, Lahore Ahmadiyya School of Education in Religion, which is a department of the Ahmadiyya and Nishad Islam of Lahore. The Ahmadiyya movement was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who taught that although other people say that after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, a prophet can come, but this is incorrect because the Holy Prophet, that the Holy Quran says that the Holy Prophet is Khatamun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet explained its meaning by saying, Ana Khatamun Nabiyyin la Nabiya ba'di. I am Khatamun Nabiyyin, and there is no prophet after me. And this worried his companions, who asked what will happen if the Ummah needs guidance or reform. And the Holy Prophet said, God will raise a reformer, a mujaddid, who will freshen their religion for them. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that the Messiah and the Mahdi spoken of in the Hadith are not two separate personalities, but two aspects of a mujaddid's work, for which metaphorically he is called the Messiah and Mahdi. He also taught that although other people say that a prophet, the basic fundamental source of our religious knowledge is the Hadith, he said that the first and the fundamental source of our knowledge is the Holy Quran. And then comes Sunnah, the actions of the Holy Prophet or what he did. And then comes Hadith, or his sayings, the Holy Prophet's sayings, which weren't written down for at least 100 years after the Holy Prophet had passed away. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that although other people say that some prophetic revelation is missing from the Holy Quran, and some that is in the Holy Quran is abrogated. This is untrue. God said that He has revealed the Holy Quran and He will protect it. So how can anything be missing from it, or how can anything in it be abrogated? And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said that jihad is a fundamental duty of every Muslim, but jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, who, when returning from fighting, said that Muslims return from the minor jihad to the major jihad, and he defined the major jihad as jihad bin nafs, a struggle, a jihad against our own souls to do the wrong thing. So with that, let's turn to the verse of the Holy Quran. As I said, chapter 2, verse 107. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تعلم أن الله له ملك السماوات والأرض وما لكم من دون الله من ولي ولا نصير. And Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali has translated this as no, don't you know that Allah's is the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and that besides Allah, you don't have any friend or helper. So today we are going to look at these words. Wait, get to my notes on the computer. Anna, well, this simply means that. There is no root from which other words are made. And in grammar, its technical name given in the dictionary is accusative particle, Anna. So simply means that. Next one is Allah. And this is a proper noun. It's the name of the divine being, his personal name. And when all the others are Allah's attributes. Rahman and Rahim and Malik Yawmiddin and Jabbar and Kahar and Ghaffar and whatever else you have, they're all attributes. But when we say Allah, when we use his personal name, then that includes everything. You know, it's like if you're talking to a friend and you're trying to talk about someone you met that he might know. One way to do it is to say, well, he's about 6 foot tall and he weighs 160 pounds and he's got a mustache and a beard and he wears glasses and so on. These are all that person's attributes. But if you say Peter, then that one word encapsulates everything about that person. And it's the same here. Allah is the proper personal name of God. Some people, and this includes Muslims, they say that it has it's a combination of Al and Illah. Illah being God, Illah means God, Al Illah the God, etc. Yes, Illah is the word for God, and Al obviously is the equivalent of the in English. But this is not a combination of Al and Illah. This is a separate, distinct word in its own right. And even in Arabic non-Ahmadi dictionaries, you'll find that it's given as Al Illah, and this gives non-Muslims a great stick to beat Muslims with. They say that Muslims don't actually believe in some divine being called Allah, divine being called Allah. What it is that the Quraysh had hundreds of gods, and what Muslims did was they appointed like a head god to oversee the work of all the gods. You see, if you say that Allah is a combination of Al and Illah, then it takes us away from the concept of unity of Godhead. That there is a unique being, and you cannot have his likeness because he's unique. But if you say Al Illah, then that means that there are many such beings, and he is just sort of there in charge. But apart from that, as I always say to people, that when you combine Al with any noun, you have to follow one of the two rules. They call the Arabic language is divided into two: the sun letters and the moon letters, and that division is based on how you pronounce the combined word once you added Al to it. So the word for sun is Shams. You add Al in front of it. You don't say Al Shams, you say Ash-Shams. And if you have the word, so all the words, all the nouns that follow that rule, those letters, they're called the sun letters, because any word, any noun beginning with that letter will follow that rule, that Lam will be dropped and Hamza will combine with the first letter, like Ash-Shams. But if you have Qamar, then, and you write Al in front of it, then you will have Al-Qamar. So here Al is pronounced in full. And this rule conclusively proves that Allah is one word, and it's not Al, it is stuck in front of Illah. I've mentioned this many times, but because of its importance, I'm repeating that. I think in the Urdu broadcast, I missed out one word, lahu, for him, but that's all it is. It's a prefixed preposition. It has two two segments. You have preposition la and who, pronoun, and I somehow missed that. Anyway, and I went on to the last word we're going to discuss today, and which is mulku, and its root is mim lam kaf, and in the Holy Quran you find 10 words, 10 different words made from that combination, and in total they appear in the Holy Quran, all these different words, 206 times. 88 times as the noun malak, and 48 times as the noun mulk, and 44 times as the verb malakat, and what else is there? 15 times as the word malik, and then the rest is once or twice. And in various forms, it means to possess something, to have power over something, to control something. Malaika or angels means kingdom, it means dominion, sovereignty over something, and so on. And as I said, it means to control something, to have power over something. So it stands for authority. Because obviously, an authority has power over things. It means foundations. It means something on which others depend. And an example is that an area in the desert which can sustain life because it has water and grazing area and etc. The same word is used for that area of the desert. Indeed, just water itself is described in the same way, because obviously all life depends on water. But the interesting thing is that there's a saying in Arabic, al-ma'u malaka amra, and that is that water straightens everything out, meaning that the one who possesses water, who has water, he can do whatever he wants, and all his matters, all his difficulties are straightened out. Now you see, if we, rather than take a narrow view, if we take a wider view of this, what will we see? That those nations which are independent or possess those things upon which life depends are independent, and they can make their own decisions, and no one can force them or bully them into doing something. And that's an important thing to think over. From just this one word, that if you depend on others for your living, for your life, then you cannot be truly independent. they'll be able to dictate their terms. And when I say life depends on that, when I say, sorry, things on which life depends, I include in that things that make sure that you are independent. You know, Mrs. Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, was asked, from whom did you learn to conduct the affairs of your state in this way? This was, I think, an American interviewer who went to interview her, and because she was on her own, she lived in a one-bedroom flat in a block of flats, as opposed to our leaders, who can't live unless the house is located in 50 acres of land and so on. Prime Minister of Israel, who was responsible for many of its victories, lived in a one-bedroom flat. But anyway, this I think American interviewer asked her, who did you learn? From whom did you learn how to conduct the affairs of your state? And she said, Muhammad. And the man was surprised, and he said, Muhammad who? And she said, Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. And the man was astounded. And he said, how? He said, when Muhammad died, they didn't have enough cloth in the house to make his burial shroud. And when they looked around, they found 3 swords and a shield in his house. So from that I learned that if you are to live as an independent nation, you must have enough resources to defend your country, even if you don't have resources to bury your dead. And she said, this is the policy that I followed. And she mentioned the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he taught her that. And then I asked the question, is there any Islamic country that can say that it's truly independent? And I leave the answer to you. But I also point out that, reflecting upon one word of the Holy Quran leads to, if you think about it, it leads to your conclusion that you need to change your life and your policies and so on, as a nation, as a country, as a people, as an individual, and so on. So although this word means power and possession and governance and so on, but it especially means God's power, his control over everything. And it's like, later on, the story of the Israelites, where they asked for a commander so that we can fight in the way of Allah, tuqatilu fi sabilillah, so that we may fight in Allah's way. A military commander is something whom you have to obey. If you don't, you get court-martialed and shot. But what you have to remember is that another quality or aspect of God's being is that he is Rabb. And Rabb is a being that cares for its creation, and it takes it from a lowly state, and in stages it improves it and makes it better and better and better until it's perfect. So the concept of Rabb, concept of Allah, has to be compatible with his quality that he is the Malik, and also the quality that he is Rabb. What most people do is that they take one aspect of anything, for example, God's attributes, and they concentrate so much on that they forget about his other attributes, and then they come to an extreme conclusion about whether he's Ghaffar or etc., whatever else there is, or Jabbar, or etc. So God is Malik, he has power over everything, and he's used that power to create rules and regulations and a system, and given it to humanity so that if they act in accordance with that system, in stages, they will get better and better and better. And another thing I want to mention is the term Ma Malakat Aymanukum, found in the Holy Quran, literally meaning those whom your right hands possess. And as I always say to people, that this is an idiomatic use of terminology, and we have to take it as such and not as idiotic use of terminology. This is not necessarily literally owning something. It can also mean people that you can direct, your subordinates, that you give them instructions, do this, do that. If you have servants, if you have a gardener, or I don't know, cleaning person or whatever, and they come in and say, okay, and you say to them, okay, today we're going to clean the first floor or whatever, then they fall in that category. But this term is also used for women in the list that of the women that you're allowed to or not allowed to marry. It says, "Wal muhsanatu minas samai illa ma malakat aymanukum." In Surah Nisa, verse 22, I think. So here, if muhsanat, wal muhsinatu, so if that means what you might say, good women, pure women, you can translate that as the good women, all good women, apart from those in your nikah, those that whom you have married, are unlawful for you to have relations with. But you can also translate it as married women. So that way it will become that all married women, it's unlawful for you to marry or have relations with the married women, except those whom your right hands possess. And this is said to refer to female slaves, etc. But I disagree with that, because In another place, the Quran tells us that if women of Makkah or a woman from Makkah comes to Medina and she embraces Islam and she's married, after she has embraced Islam, do not return her to her non-believing husband, because he will try and force her to go back to the old religion. And what you should do is that you should give them their dowry, their haq meher, and you should enter into a nikah with them. So these are the married women whom you are allowed to marry, despite the fact that their husbands are still alive. And we must also consider the society at the time. I mean, it was commonplace to have male and female slaves at the time, and so on and so forth. But and Islam made that unlawful. There were some slaves that Muslims got as a result of fighting and so on. But even those, the Holy Quran told Muslims that, let them go free after they paid you some compensation, or better still, as a favor. So that means that Islam closed the doors to slavery. It is unfortunate that later on Muslims indulged in slavery and so on. But even that was different from slavery as practiced by the British in Africa and South America and by the Americans in the United States, etc. For example, if you go to the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, you'll see a plaque there. It says that the Queen used to send out scouts who would go through Europe and Asia and so on, looking for the most intelligent, the most beautiful girls. And they would bring them back. And then these girls were given education. They were trained in the art of poetry and politics and etc., etc. And every year there would be an exam. And some would qualify for further training. And this would continue until there was only one girl left. And what happened to that one girl? She married the crown prince, and she was the next queen. In India, you have a dynasty of, or you had a dynasty of slaves. It's called dynasty of slaves because each king was a slave and eventually rose to becoming the ruler. Salahuddin Ayyubi, or Saladin as he's called, his father was a slave. Mamluks, they were slaves. They were, the word itself means owned. If you're owned by someone else, you're a slave. But we slightly digress from our topic, which was that this phrase does not allow Muslims just to have relations with women because they own them. There's a fundamental condition that you have to enter into nikah with them and pay them their haq meher. We've slightly gone over our time, so I take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, May Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.